Welcome back to the MSMB Networks Week in Review, where every week we're bringing you the latest news that affects your digital world. My name is Christopher, and we have a lot of news stories to cover this week, so we're going to jump right in. Samsung has one of the largest competitors to the Apple iPhone, mainly in their Galaxy S3, S2, and Galaxy Advanced models. Well, unfortunately, all three of those phones and many others, it was revealed this week, have a huge and crippling feature. They can be updated via a link, visiting a web page, or scanning a QR code. Unfortunately, that update doesn't just mean your phone gets better, it means it resets it to factory default. It is a huge problem, in the same way you would get it out of the box with no contacts, no history, no apps, no games, none of your information, nothing, with a simple press of a text message, of a website, of a QR code, etc. It's a big problem these days as phones are getting more and more just like computers. We always recommend that you watch out what you click on, that you make sure you only click on things from trusted sources, you don't just scan barcodes and QR codes willy-nilly, and that you really pay attention to what's going on. But most importantly, most phones these days have the ability to back up, whether it's through your computer, whether through some other provider, you're able to back up all the data on your phone. This is essential because we're seeing more and more carriers want to be able to update phones as simple as possible. They send a code to your phone and boom, it updates. Well, unfortunately, in Samsung's case, they didn't disable the ability for people to remotely wipe or reset your phone. This has been a big news that came out this week at a security conference, and it's something that all Samsung phone users should watch out for. If you get weird text messages or links, or you get sent to strange web pages, don't click on anything, and especially don't hit the dial key. Now, we've been asked by a lot of people, hey, well, what is that code? Well, we're obviously not going to publish that because we don't want anyone's phone to be reset accidentally. And if you do want to factory reset your phone, you already have ways of doing that, namely by taking it back to your provider. What a bad week for Microsoft. First, earlier this week, Intel's CEO announced to a bunch of employees that Windows 8 wasn't ready, it shouldn't be released, and that it wasn't forward-thinking enough. Well, of course, the text of his speech got out, and both Intel and Microsoft are really paying their PR departments overtime to try to get this gaffe under wraps. Unfortunately, also, Microsoft is having a bunch of legal problems in the United Kingdom and the rest of the EU. Back in 2009, Microsoft was fined over $1.2 billion because they weren't offering people a choice. They were forcing people to use Internet Explorer by default. They weren't offering others such as Chrome or Firefox or Safari even. They weren't giving users a choice, and in the EU, that's pretty much against the law. Well, it's not the law here in the United States where Microsoft is based, and they basically ignored the EU. And so now, about 3 years later, which was the amount of time the EU said Microsoft had to make these changes, the EU has taken a look at all of Microsoft's products from Windows Vista, 7, 8, server installations, and so on, and said, well, you guys pretty much ignored us, and we're going to be levying more fines. That was announced early this week, and sometime next week, the court system is going to release exactly how much Microsoft owes them. Now, Microsoft has been paying their fees and what they owe so far, but they haven't made any changes. So this week, Microsoft got a double dose of bad news coming their way, and it's going to be very interesting to see what their shareholders have to say at their meeting later this year. For years, if someone wanted to build a gaming computer, the operating system choice was very limited. Microsoft Windows. Mac didn't have the hardware support, and trying to play Windows games on a Mac was very difficult. Similarly, on Linux, most people didn't have the know-it-all to get the high-end 3D graphics working. So it was kind of a lost cause. However, Valve, the company that has brought us Half-Life 2, Team Fortress 2, and a bunch of other games, has recently changed the entire playing field. Their product, Steam, which allows you to download and play some of your favorite games on any computer anywhere, has recently announced that just like last year when they brought out Steam for Mac, they're bringing out Steam for Linux, allowing Linux users to play the same games their Windows and Mac compatriots have been playing for years. Well, what people have recently found in the more than year that they've had a team working on this is that the games on Linux work even faster than they do on Mac and even faster than they do on Windows. In fact, half again as fast with the exact same hardware. This means people playing on Linux are able to push their system faster, harder, they have better graphics, and they run smoother than the same people running on the same machines on Windows. Now, this has been a huge source of news and information for geeks the world over because they've been clamoring for the past year. When are we going to get it? When are we going to get our hands on it? When are you going to release it? And Valve, in a blog entry called Better Late Than Never, recently announced that in October they're going to have a closed beta where they're going to allow 1,000 lucky geeks the opportunity to play Steam on their Linux computer natively. Now, if you're interested in signing up for that, there's a link down below in the comments field, and we would love to see as many people get in on this so we can hear about your experiences. People are expecting that there's going to be an open beta for Steam on Linux later this year, and hopefully it's going to be open for general release early next year. This really gives a lot of hope for gaming on this alternative operating system, and it's going to be a fantastic boost to people who have always wanted to play these great games on their favorite OS. We at MSMB Networks have a new hero this week, and it's Portugal. Recently, a court judge has decided that of all these people lobbying to say every single person who downloads a file online is a criminal and stealing from the pockets of these lobby groups, well, he was really tired of having his court docket filled with these cases with such little evidence, with absolutely no damages being able to be proven, and that was taking years and years and years of backlog and lawyers' fees to even get settled, most of which just get thrown out in the first case. He's recently declared, you know what? It's legal. It is absolutely legal now in Portugal, according to these judges, to download files so long as you don't do so for commercial gain. Now that means file sharing is going to have an explosion in that country, and we're going to be very interested to see what happens as far as the lobby groups and the laws that actually take place versus just what's enforced. Similar legislation has already been brought up in the European Union, basically because in the Netherlands, the same law is in effect. If you download something, say your favorite movie or song or whatnot, and you don't intend to sell it, you're not sharing it with other people, you're not legally liable for any damages because mainly there is no damages. They can't prove that you downloading that removed money from their pocket. This is a very contentious part of legalese that's been waging war in America for some years now, with lobby groups such as the MPAA or the RIAA announcing that every single person who downloads a movie, a file, a music, a document, anything, is taking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars out of their pockets for every single one. It's something that geeks all over the world are paying attention to, and especially as we move to a more modern age where people feel much freer with downloading works, whether it's music, movies, stories, anything, and sharing it with their friends. This is something that everyone should be more aware of. The laws concerning their actions online, because for many people who've been absolutely financially ruined here in America, there are severe consequences if you're caught. However, in other countries, and hopefully this is a changing tide that we're going to see worldwide, that might not be the case, and it might not be the case in the future, even here at home. So Portugal, thumbs up, and keep on the good work. If there were ever a single website that was the biggest thorn in the US government's side, it would be WikiLeaks.org. Started by a man named Julian Assange a few years ago, the idea behind WikiLeaks.org was a place for people to anonymously post information that they had received that should be revealed to the public, but might be too sensitive for them themselves to put it out there. Over the past few years, we've seen classified documents, board meeting minutes from various corporations, lobby groups, and the like, and all sorts of nasty cables that have revealed some of the dirty undergoings or happenings between companies, between countries, between lobby groups, and all kinds of other powers out in the world. The U.S. in particular has a real problem with WikiLeaks.org and its founder, Julian Assange, mainly because its most spectacular releases of documents paint the U.S. government in a really, really poor light. In fact, the U.S. has sponsored an international manhunt for Julian Assange over the past few years on what many people have considered trumped-up charges. While not taking a rest there, the U.S. military has recently announced that both Julian Assange and WikiLeaks.org are now classified as enemies of the state. This puts both that man and that website in the same legal category as Al-Qaeda and the Taliban insurgency. Meaning, if you visit their website and you happen to have security clearance, you're not likely to keep that security clearance very long. And if you've contributed to WikiLeaks.org via their donation page or trying to help them keep their lights on, well, I wouldn't actually record that on your IRS taxes for a nonprofit donation because you're, in theory, helping the terrorists win. and that's something that no good American should do. All of the news revolving around WikiLeaks.org has been very interesting over the past few years, and I have no doubt that it's going to continue to be, especially as, undaunted, they continue to release material that makes all sorts of countries, companies, lobby groups, and whatnot look very foolish, or at the very least, revealing a lot of the underhanded things that are going on behind closed doors. Whether you like them or hate them, it's going to be a very interesting few years of Internet news. Several weeks ago, we talked about how Google is going to make it very difficult in the future for people using an old operating system like Windows XP to use their services, such as Google Apps or Google Docs. Well, they've announced recently that as of October 1st, it's going to be even harder for people to use those same services if they're using outdated software. As of October 1st, if you try to take a document off of Google Docs, called exporting, and put it directly on your computer, you're going to have a version of Microsoft Office around Office 2007 or later to open the file. Earlier versions, such as Office XP or before, aren't going to be able to read it. Now, having outdated software is a big problem for security people like myself, because that means it's much harder to get security updates, if they're even available, and it's much harder to stay ahead with moving trends in computing. Well, I don't know if this is going to be a big boon to free Office clones, such as LibreOffice, which is a personal favorite, or if people are going to willingly shell out the several $100s it'll take to upgrade to the newest version of Microsoft Office. Regardless, the fact that Google is moving forward with these steps to rid the internet of older software, older and insecure software most specifically, it's going to be a good opportunity for everyone to stay in the know and get used to upgrading software as time moves on. For most people, installing software is as simple as double-clicking an icon, hitting the next button a few times, and then praying it doesn't install any spyware or viruses on your computer. This type of installation is usually associated with what's called closed source software. Closed source means that all you get is that little icon. You don't get the code that went into building the program. You can't take a look to see if it's hiding something like unwanted search bars or malware that's going to affect your computer. Contrary to that, there's a type of software called open source software, which, as you can imagine, in addition to that little icon that you can click to install, includes all the code that went into making that software work. So, if you're really inclined, you can take a look line by line and see what's really going on when you double-click that icon. This difference has really come to light recently because one of the most popular programs for administrating databases that go into the back end of almost every website you've visited is open source software. And recently, one of their servers was hacked and a malicious version put online. Well, within even one day, someone downloaded that software, took a look at the code, and said, wait, this stuff doesn't belong in here, this is bad. Contacted the makers of this program called PHP-MyAdmin, and the rogue version was quickly pulled from the site. Something that's also very unique among the open source community is they're willing to talk about what goes wrong or when software goes bad. Within a day, PHP-MyAdmin and its creators put up a blog post saying, hey, there was something on here that was exploitive, it was malicious, we took it down, only a few people were affected, we've gotten in contact with them, we're sorry, thanks to this guy for noticing it, have a good day. This is very different from the way that Microsoft, Adobe, and other program creators have approached their software, closed source, mainly in that when people find bugs or exploits or ways that their software can be used maliciously, they don't do anything or they don't announce it for fear that people are going to take hold and take advantage of it. So a few months from now or a year from now or maybe never, they release a patch, while in the meantime, more and more people have been discovering the vulnerability. We definitely have to give a thumbs up to PHP-MyAdmin and the sharp-eyed guy who took a look at the software and said, this isn't right. Hopefully people are going to be more educated as the years go by on the difference between open source and closed source software and make the choice that's right for them. That about wraps up this week in review. I know we covered a lot of stories, but you're going to find links to every single one and a few more in the video description below. We'd like to thank you for watching because every week we at MSMB Networks are bringing you the latest news that affects your digital world. Please feel free to click the like or subscribe buttons and to add your comments or questions down below, and especially suggestions for what you'd like to see us cover next week. That wraps us up for today. We hope you have a good one. We are MSMB Networks, managing systems for managing business. Like us on Facebook, join us on Twitter, and of course, Subscribe to this, our new YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.